Mason County Joint Planning Commission is now in session. Roll call.
John Hutchings. Here. John Betts.
Here.
Jesse Meyer. Reed.
Here.
Lee Rosser.
Yes, sir.
Rick Phillips. Rick Lawrence. Here. John Woods.
Here.
I'm here. Michael Clark.
Here.
Okay. Minutes for June 5th, 2024 regular meeting. Is there any additions, deletions, or corrections need to be made before I ask for a motion?
Motion approved is presented.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second? Carter? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. No old business, new business. Public hearing, zoning map amendment application, Tim Clark, proposed new lot, south side of Slack Pike, half a mile southeast of the Double-A Highway and Slack Pike intersection.
Okay, so we need a motion to, exit the regular meeting and enter the public hearing.
So moved.
I have a motion to leave the regular meeting into a public hearing. Do I have a second?
Second.
John, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we're in a public hearing setting now.
All right, everyone, welcome to this the one and only public hearing we're having tonight. This is for a zoning map amendment application for Mr. Tim Clark for a proposed new lot on the south side of Slack Pike, half a mile southeast of the Double-A Highway and Slack Pike intersection. At this time, I'd like to offer into evidence for which notices were made for this public hearing. Here is a signed and notarized affidavit that I sent out first-class mail to all adjoining property owners. Here is an image of the sign I erected on the property. It's that big one right here on your left, my right. And here is a copy of the digital tear sheet that was used to create the advertisement in the Ledger Independent. All the way down at the bottom, it's really small, but it's right there. All members of the public will be given the opportunity to speak on this matter. We require that you state your names and addresses for the record. Are there any members of the public here who wish to speak on this matter? Okay. At this time, Mr. Clark, why don't you stand up for me, please, and raise your right hand. Do you swear or otherwise affirm to tell the truth? Please say I do.
I do.
Excellent. This time I invite the applicant and/or his legal counsel to address the Planning Commission.
My name is Andrew Wood, and I was hired by Tim Clark to represent him today at the hearing. Ooh, I should know all about that, shouldn't I? Is this close enough to the line, or do you want me somewhere else?
I don't know if the mic is really on or turned up. So we'll just stand right here on the other side of Michael Clark's.
Mr. Clark asked me to represent him today at this hearing, mainly due to the fact that the property is owned by his wife's trust, and he's the managing member of the trust. So I think whenever a non-individual owns something, usually legal representation is required at these kind of hearings. But in reviewing George's report and Mr. Clark's application, it's apparent that this is a 1 acre change to a business to a B2 designation, that it's appropriate for the area because there are other parcels, I think, immediately adjacent to the subject parcel that are already B2. This is a very small area. It's only an acre, and doesn't amount to 500 acre application. And we think that it is in keeping with the comprehensive plan and shouldn't be any, no public dissent I see today. And I can't think of any reason why it shouldn't be granted, but certainly Mr. Clark's here to answer questions if you all have any of it.
Is there any, I know you got tractor trailer parked out there. Is there going to be anything done with the building or anything?
What our plan is we moved them there to go through them. It's my junk.
Yeah.
And we are using the buildings on Barrett Pike to find out what's in them, put them back together, and sell them as a unit. That is the plan.
But not operate a junkyard, right?
No.
That's a word that can trigger.
And you own land across the road
and behind, all around this, right?
Yes. My wife does, and I'm the man, yeah.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, when I sent out adjoining, so this is something I wanted to talk about. It's not really a proposed new lot, but that was the best way to characterize it. Like, there's been no survey done, and I don't think there's an intention to do it. He owns like 1,000 acres out there. As a matter of fact, when I sent out adjoining property owner notices, I treated this as an already subdivided lot. Technically, he was the only adjoining property owner. I included somebody who was a little bit down and across the Slack Pike, but it was just him and this other entity. I just wanted to say that since I'm mentioning it, that I don't know that you all necessarily, and I'll go, when we talk about my staff report, I'll go into more detail, but you all need to require him to actually make that small lot in order to do this, should you see fit to do it. But I'll go in further when we talk about my staff.
Any other questions?
Do any hazardous material on the lot?
No.
So it's just trailers, right?
No, the trailers are full of things I have bought
Oh,
and
okay.
stored it.
Oh, okay, okay.
You know, I've got to do something with them.
With the stuff inside
Yeah.
the trailers, okay.
It's all good stuff.
Right.
Well, yeah, anytime you collect, it's always good stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you're going to empty it out, and then you're going to sell the.
I'm gonna sell them with the trailers. My plan is, I saw this about 4 years ago, and it was a success for the people up in Cambridge, Ohio. They had pictures of everything that was in there and logged. And they went up for auction, buy a lot. Everything inside and the trailers, gone. They're all licensed, they're all insured.
So
That's the plan.
So the trailers are just going to be there temporarily.
Yeah, that's my hope.
But temporarily or long term, it's not really gonna matter. I mean, once they're there, right?
Well, the reason why I suggested B2.
When you say temporarily, is that 30 days? Is it
No,
60 days?
it's not.
But you're planning to sell all that stuff there.
Yeah.
Okay. So the reason why I suggested B2 is one, I think the only way this could work is if it's B2, and the fact that he's planning to sell all that stuff, I think it's the only way that it could work, because then he's selling what's there. Does that make sense? If he's storing it there, storing tractor trailers is more of an industrial land use, so B2 won't really work. And then, if you go through my staff report, really it has to be B2, or it probably shouldn't have. Does that make sense? So really, the fact that the stuff is being sold, whether it takes a day or it takes a year, is how I think that this can be justified. And I mentioned this in the very end of the staff report. I think you all could make findings to make this possible, but what you shouldn't do is do it because to make up for the actions he's already taken. Because it's not the Planning Commission's responsibility to fix other people's problems. Does that make sense? Yeah. With land use, with long-term land use. So, keep in mind that if this is a temporary situation, but if you change this, it's a long-term solution to a short-term problem, and that's why you shouldn't do it because he needs you to do it. Do it because it's appropriate that you make findings to it.
Question, George. If he transitions out of this and everything's disposed of and it remains B2, what would be an idea of things that could go into fit into a B2?
I mean, B2 is,
Retail?
Yeah, retail. I mean, B2 highway business, if you look on that map on page 5, right, it's, anything that's retail or service use orientated that's along, a major highway going through the county or the city of Maysville, it's going to be B2. So anything could go there. Now, whether or not anything will go there because of its location and whether or not it's actually served by, utilities, the likelihood's probably low, especially when there's plenty of other B2s demonstrated on that map.
Thanks.
And the trailer's being sold with the stuff too, right?
That's my, yes, if this works, my plan works.
So the tractor trailer comes up, hits up the trailer, everything's.
Yeah, once we go through it, and
Yeah, once we-
our building's on verified,
Gotcha.
yeah, we'll be moving over and back.
Since there are no members of the public who wish to speak, do you all wish to exit the public hearing and go back?
No further questions, so moved.
Motion to move back out of public hearing into regular meeting, second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Okay, we're back into regular meeting.
Now, of course, you all can still ask questions.
Yeah, let's hear what, how you come up with that.
So originally when I talked to Mr. Clark, I hadn't really taken a look at the map very well. I wasn't really aware about where he was looking to do this. And I think as stated, he had already gravelled it and he was already planning to do it. I think he started maybe a week later, putting the semi-truck trailers there. Now, if you do look at the map that's on page 5, and then, the text that it kind of speaks to is on page 3. The land adjacent to the AA highway, because it was widened as part of an urban corridor. And the urban corridor stretches 1,000 feet on either side from the center line of the highway. As you'll see on the map on page 5, that blue line is approximately where 1,000 feet is. As a matter of fact, going east-northeast, that's where the B2 stops. But if you'll notice, north of it and northwest of it, it doesn't really stop. That was kind of been done just to meet lot lines and all that kind of stuff. So it doesn't necessarily have to adhere to it because it's not that way on the map. Because it's not strictly adhered to, that gives you some wiggle room to make findings that this is consistent with the comprehensive plan. I mean, to be honest with you, 1 acre, compared to all the other red that's there and all the agricultural, it's really on the border of a major section of commercial and a major section of agricultural. I mean, either way, I don't know that it makes much of a difference. And as stated, I don't know that there's going to be any significant impact to the surrounding agricultural land. And frankly, he's the owner of it.
He's the owner.
All land changes hands eventually. So, eventually he and his wife's trust aren't going to be the owner. But really, if this isn't created into a new lot, whoever buys that land is going to buy this land too. That's pretty much really most of my staff report. The other 2 prongs of the 3-prong test don't really apply, in my opinion. Aren't really relevant because it doesn't meet those. Like I said, you should base your decision on findings, not off the necessity of granting relief to the applicant, I think.
Anybody got any other questions?
Would, if he had come in and says, I want to do the whole 1,000 acres of B2, would that make a difference? The only thing I'm saying is, once we open up the can of worms or allow 1 acre, what's going to stop the whole 1,000 acres from being B2?
Well, So some of it is already B2 because he owns going up around to B2. He said that it wasn't feasible to use any of that land for this. I think if he was looking to do the entire farm, that would be far outside of the urban corridor. I think the fact that there's this little bit right here that actually extends far past it, I think that would make the difference, if you see what I mean.
You didn't have any pictures. What's it look like you want to struggle?
I did. I didn't include them with my staff report because I didn't think it was appropriate for that to be factored.
They're just lined up on it.
There's just gravel, and there's
Gravel.
a few dozen of them just lined up
Backed
there.
up against the tree line.
They're sort of right next to that building, so it's just, they extend a little far past the building. But yeah, they're just,
George, you want to say because of these facts, proposed rezoning could be interpreted as being consistent with the comprehensive plan.
yeah, because I mean, to be honest, looking at this map, and this is 1,000 feet. I think this is it's like 1,500 or maybe a little bit more, and that's about what his, what justification for saying, no, you can't do this here, but then you have that.
A reasonable interpretation.
Right.
Yeah, right across the street.
Yeah, right across the street, and then, this extends just as far, if not farther, from that blue line as this does right here. I would just say he would be limited to 1 square acre, and that's why I said it was approximately. The applicant said it was going to be about an acre, and I did a rough estimate with the map. It was about an acre from what I observed.
I move to approve it as presented.
Okay, and a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Based upon what?
George's report.
Okay. And it being in agreement with the comprehensive plan?
Yes, sir. For the statement in the report.
Oh, and I did want to mention this too. I might have mentioned this in the report. I did say to Mr. Clark I would start the procedure of technically he's in violation of the zoning code. I told him that I would start the process of noticing that he's in violation and the early process of prosecuting. I figured that the county attorney would say, just wait until the zoning application's over and that process is over, then we can worry about it. Because there's no sense in prosecuting him if you all in the county is.
All right, I got a motion and a second. All those,
Second.
Gerald. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Let's do it. Let's do a voice vote.
Okay.
Again, saying aye will be to approve the motion to recommend this to the Mason County Fiscal Court, and saying nay would shoot down the motion. If you all decided to deny it, you would have to have a new motion. Is that okay? John Hutchins.
Yes.
John Bass.
Yes.
Kirby Rosser.
Yes.
Rick Lawrence.
Yes.
Joe Woods.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And just so you all know, this is a recommendation to the Mason County Fiscal Court. This is not the final decision.
All right. Okay, George, I guess comprehensive plan update.
Okay, so you all have, and I have it somewhere here, you all have a fairly large document that I hope you all have taken a look at. And really it's to show you where we're at, and I also wanted to tell you that we have 2 public meetings scheduled to review this with the public. Next Tuesday at 6 in the Cox Building, Tuesday evening, that's the 13th, and then following Tuesday, the 20th, out at the Maysville Fire Hall. But I'm not sure if Dr. Davis went through this, and there are some, I don't know if she went through it and corrected some errors here and there. At one point, Maysville was listed as Maysville. Yeah, Maysville College. No, she didn't. But this is a final-ish draft of the goals, objectives, and associated strategies.
But we'll continue to take input from the public at our meetings. Public attendance at the Cox and at Maysville.
Yes. So those are right. And then we're going to do So then the following Tuesday, the 27th, is the next steering committee meeting where she'll have everything collated for the changes. And then we'll do after that sometime probably. I think I've got tentative dates, but I don't have them with me. I think in September is when if you'll notice, there are 7 themes, but there are only 6 here. We're going to do land use and the environment last. So we need to do
Supposed to be the 17th and the 24th.
Okay.
September.
Are those the other meetings for the? So that's where we are. Do you all have any comments or questions or concerns about this? We can be as detailed as you like tonight, or it's because we're going to do that last. Because so the whole point of the comprehensive plan is to really come up with the zoning map. So we kind of need to do all this first, then do the land use part, because land use is really something the environment really needs.
Now, is that the one in September? One's going to be at the college, and the other one, Maysville. Is that what?
I wish I brought my notes with me. I don't have them with me.
That's why I got it wrote down, but I don't know.
I mean, I'll be sure.
She was shooting all those dates out pretty quick.
Yeah, we came up with those pretty fast. What I'll do is tomorrow I will update the city webpage for the comprehensive plan update, put that stuff all there. So that'll be the next 3 Tuesdays have meetings. I'll update it there.
Will the land use discussion be about what you can do in a zone, or where the zones are, or both?
I think it's more to do with where is zoned what. And then these goals and objectives, some of them talk about changing things so that you can do different things in different locations, I think.
So you won't talk about that when you're talking about land uses, you won't be talking about what can you do in R1.
I mean, we might. To be honest with you, I don't know how Allison is.
Okay.
George, was there a committee that we had to do for ag use or housing? Was there a committee for land?
I think it's all going to be everybody
I think it's going to be all of this kind of combined.
Once we do these 4 meetings, then you said we'd have, that's when we'll do the land use after those.
So I think the ones in September are for land use.
And then we'll have one last public meeting here.
I think what we'll do is we'll have, I think this is what we're planning to do. I think we're statutorily required to have a public hearing for the comprehensive plan with you guys before it's kicked up to the local legislative bodies. I think that's when we'll have probably a finalish version of it. Then that's when you all will discuss it, and then the public can have their say as well.
So that's 5 opportunities to talk about. 5 more opportunities.
How many respondents were to the original survey?
We wanted a lot more than that, but I mean, you can't put guns to people's
What's the
heads.
population in Mason County?
Total population is around 18,000. Now, I do remember that I think somewhere around 250 to 300 of the respondents didn't live here.
Really?
Yes. That's what we wanted. We wanted to know why people maybe work here and didn't live here.
Now say again, they worked here?
Yeah, there are a lot of people who come into, we're kind of an economic hub. There are a lot of people who come in to shop. There are a lot of people who come into work who don't live in Mason County. So we still want their opinions. Maybe they want to live here, but they can't because housing is scarce, or maybe they don't want to live here because here's the reason, and we change that reason. they might want to live here. Does that make sense?
I understand what you're saying, but as Mason County, why should I have to bow down to somebody that's not a Mason County?
Well, chances are, if it's
For
an
my
issue,
for my welfare.
right? Well, chances are, if it's a problem for somebody outside the county, it's probably a problem for somebody inside the county too. I mean, it's not that we're doing this for non-Mason counties. I mean, it's for, but it's inclusive of other people because maybe they'll become Mason counties.
I see what you're saying, and I hope you see what I'm saying. I mean,
Yeah.
how could somebody from California comment about what we're doing in Mason County and be anonymous about it?
Well, Dr. Davis can track that stuff by IP address. So somebody in California isn't going to be able to see the results. So we really don't care about what people nearby.
Probably Adams.
Yeah, who commute in for work or commute in for.
So the kids that grew up here and left, you don't want to know what they think, huh?
Well, we might if they're thinking about coming back.
My point being that they won't necessarily live in Adams and Brown County,
No, they might not.
but you still hope they'll come back.
Yeah.
Well, and maybe if the reason why they don't live here, they give the reason. I mean, chances are people who don't live here that we want to come back, the problems they have with Mason County are also shared by people who already do live here.
Yeah.
Problems are
Probably
right.
their parents and stuff.
Like if somebody doesn't live here because housing is unaffordable, that's probably not a they problem. That's an our problem. That's, some people who live here think that housing is unaffordable. It doesn't mean that if they express themselves and they have problems and they don't live here, it doesn't mean that that's just unique to them.
That goes back to being an economic problem. Is that right? If they don't have if they can't afford housing,
Right.
it's an
I
economic
think it
problem.
boils
There's
down to
not that kind of enough of employment here that they can afford to live in Mason County.
Possibly.
We're gonna have public meetings on the goals, objectives, and strategies.
Yeah, they're going to have.
Who then distills, I mean, if somebody comes in and says, well, we need a 6 Bravo or they want to add one. What's the process that decides, yes, that's a good idea, we are, or no, we're not? Is that the committees that came up with them are going to meet again? Is the whole committee, what's the process?
No, I think once we get the input from the public, then it'll go back to the steering committee and Dr. Davis.
Yeah.
And then that decision will be made at that level.
Okay.
Because we're gonna have the next steering committee the Tuesday after the 22nd. Yep.
But then the steering commission recommends it to the planning commission, so we get a final product.
Right.
We've had input, not everybody may have been there, but it comes back to us as a whole product.
I think, as I recall, I've taken the statute for the comprehensive plan. I think planning commission is required to have at least one public hearing on the final product.
And that's when we go to move it up the chain.
Yep. And anybody who comes to that public hearing can, say something. And it's happened before. It happened in the last year.
And I'm wondering if anything significant comes out of that public hearing, would she revise that one more time?
And maybe if need be. I mean, you all could kick it back down to the steering committee and say, hey, we need to.
Or you could adopt it with recommended changes.
Okay. Anybody else?
Does anybody want to talk about, get into any specifics about the themes, goals, objectives, strategies?
I suggest that somebody needs to figure out how a plan that's only supposed to last 5 years is taking 2.5 years to develop. Because either the plan's not got a long enough horizon or we need to speed up the process.
I think this is the first time we've done something like this in some time. It's just, I mean, that's the thing with wanting to get as much public input as possible at every step of the process. It just.
No, I'm not faulting any of the process we've done. I'm just trying to raise the point that run up and the length of that you're going to use it don't seem to be aligned.
Yeah, I mean, just the last time we did it, I was actually hired on a little less than halfway through it. And just having the planning commission sit down and look at it every month, that took a year.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, it's taken about 2 years where we get as much public input. That's just with one public hearing that we had at the very end, and then 3 people showed up and
There
suggested.
was 3 people, 4 people at the most, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Through the whole process.
Right. So I mean, do I wish it had taken less than 2 years? Yes, but I mean, I guess I'm happy. Are you all happy with how much engagement there's been? I wish there had been more, but I mean, there's only so much you can do to get the public involved.
I don't think you can fault the effort that the commission has made to get public involvement. I mean, we've spent a lot of time talking about how are we going to get the public to interact and engage with us.
And what the planning commission's discussion at its meetings has been a small amount of that too. I mean, there's a lot of stuff at the steering committee. There's a lot of stuff at the public meetings. I think I've been to every public meeting we've had so far. I've had to leave a few times, but it's been a lot of work. Yeah.
All right, anything else?
Do you have something?
I do. Can you explain to me the difference? Mr. Clark wanted an amendment, a rezone, right? Is that what he did? That piece of land was rezoned. Well, what is a conditional use permit? What's the difference in those 2 things?
So conditional use permit is something that the boards of adjustment deal with. So if you go into this document.
Why would you do one or the other?
Well, the rezoning changes the entire zone of a piece of property. A conditional use permit is for a specific or a small list of land uses.
A small what?
List of land uses. Like we have next week, the County Board of Adjustment has a conditional use permit application for out on Helena Road, where in his zoning classification, the property owner's zoning classification, the 2, maybe 3 things that he wants to do are conditional uses. It's a maybe. It might be okay here, but it might not, and you have to put conditions on it or consider conditions to make it okay. So what he wanted was to change the entire zone and all of the things that are possible on the piece of land that he was talking about. Conditional use permit is just approving a specific land use, or maybe more than one or 2, that is iffy in that zoning classification.
And so it stays with that piece of property, not the owner?
Which?
The conditional use, and there's a difference between a variance and a conditional use.
Right, the variance runs with the land and is permanent. The conditional use permit, we've actually had discussions about this.
The answer is not exactly clear on that.
Is that right?
Right.
But I was just trying to understand the difference between the zoning change, and so you're kind of.
Right, zoning changes are quasi-legislative because you're changing the rules. Conditional use permit applications are quasi-judicial because the Board of Adjustment takes existing rules and makes a judgment about it.
So that piece of property falls into some maybe area on the zoning that's already in place, is what you're saying.
Well, whenever you go to change a zoning classification, there's some interpretation by this body as to whether or not it should happen. So it is sort of quasi-judicial, but it's quasi-legislative because the rules are being changed. When you change the zoning map, the zoning map establishes the rules basically, where you can do what. So when you edit that, you're sort of editing the rules.
Based upon how a property is zoned tells you what you can do in that property. Mm-hmm. A use on a piece of property is either permitted, it's conditional, or it's not allowed. Okay? And so if your property is zoned as A2, you have a list of options of things you can do on that piece of property. There are things that are permitted, as in you don't have to get anybody's permission to do it. You can just do it because of the way it's zoned. If it's conditional, you've got to get permission from the Board of Adjustment because it might be okay on this property, but it might not be okay on this property. And then if it's not permitted, you just can't do it, period. End of story, no ifs, ands, or buts. By seeking to rezone the property, he's seeking to change the list of things that he's allowed to do on the property. When you apply for a conditional use permit, your property is already zoned as such, okay? And you're saying, you're requesting from the Board of Adjustment, there's this thing I want to do on this property, and under our list of uses, it's a conditional use, which means I've got to explain to you why on this particular piece of property, that thing that I want to do that's a conditional use is appropriate under the circumstances. And the neighbors get a chance to come in and say, no, we don't want him to do that there, or, hey, we're okay if he wants to do that there. And then the Board of Adjustment has the chance to say, you can do it on this piece of property if you follow A, B, and C.
Does that follow title? That conditional use permit, does that follow the title of the property?
That's goes back to a question he just asked. The answer to that is a little unclear. I think you can argue that either way. Our regulations clearly state, and state law clearly states that variances run with the land, and so they go, yes, they follow the title. It doesn't say that insofar as conditional use permits are concerned, so I think you could argue, no, it doesn't. But then I think George has an interpretation that I don't disagree with that says, yeah, it does. Right?
So,
If the use that's granted is no longer used, whatever they decided they were going to do with it, they stopped doing it. Does that revert back, or does that conditional use stay on that property?
I think in order to cease land use that was made possible by a conditional use permit, I think you have to have a public hearing to make it not possible to like revoke the conditional use permit. I think the Board of Adjustment needs to take affirmative action to stop it.
so going back to Carol's question, which is a good one. Wish I had thought about it. Mr. Clark couldn't ask for a variance or conditional use because it's ag.
Because of what?
It's zoned as agriculture, and he wants to do something totally different from agriculture. It doesn't fit that land use.
Right. The way it's currently zoned.
The way it's currently zoned.
Right.
He couldn't park trailers there if it's continued ag.
But it's like what Michael said. Changing the zoning classification changes basically all the rules.
Oh, I understand. I'm trying to figure out how you know, and I'm just trying to educate myself.
Yeah.
Trying to see why certain things go different directions.
Right. Yeah, it just has to do with the planning board.
And a lot of times, someone will come, George will be made aware of the situation, and he will address the situation with that property owner and try to figure out a way that, if it's possible, how they can do what they want to do with their property and or prosecute it if it's appropriate. Or someone will come to George and say, I own this piece of property and this is what I want to do with it. And he tries to help them figure out how they can accomplish what they want to accomplish. And sometimes the solution is a proposed rezoning, because in this case, the property is so close to other commercial uses, it made sense to just seek a rezoning. But if it had been out in the county, far away from any other commercial use, then it would have been more appropriate to consider it for a conditional use permit as opposed to a rezone.
If the land use sought was actually conditional use. And basically, the way it goes is I'm the one who makes that decision because I make a recommendation to whoever the property owner is or whoever wants to do whatever land use. Does that make sense? So his only option here was a rezoning. That was just it, just because of what he wanted to do, what's currently zoned, and where it's going. The one I told you about with the guy out on Helena Road, he just happens to be in a strip of, it's not ag, it's C rural community, which is very similar to D1 downtown business, which is what downtown
Is it right? C1, did you say?
It's just C. It's the small communities out in the county, and that's like the mixed use areas that serve the surrounding farmland. So he may or may not, I don't remember exactly, be able to do what he wants there if it wasn't zone C.
Did you say C? I'm sorry,
C.
my hearing's not correct.
Yeah.
How far does that go down that road?
It's just a little strip on either side.
How far though?
I don't recall.
I just remember that there had there was a hearing about the other metal shop that's down the road 10 years ago. And, it had to be, I don't know if it was rezoned or what it was. And I don't know if it was 10 years ago or not. But trackside steel's on down there. And I just wondered if it was in the receive zone.
I remember giving him a letter saying that he basically does almost exclusively agricultural stuff, so he's actually a permitted use there.
Well, I understand. I'm just trying. Yeah, I didn't know what it was receive zone.
That's what all of Maysville proper is selling. That's what enables them to have stores that aren't selling ag stuff. It supports the surrounding farmland with like convenience stores and stuff like that.
Just curious, is Mr. Clark, somebody reporting, or did he just come in voluntarily? Just curious.
Two part.
Just somebody reporting, or he come in?
He contacted David Horde, and this was like the week before he was going to do this, and he had already gravelled the land, and then David referred him to me. So he came in, I had a phone conversation with him, and I said, well, I guess rezoning is your only option. I hadn't looked at the map yet to know exactly where the land was, because I didn't know exactly where it was until I basically went out there a week later and saw where it was. It's like, well, technically B2 touches it. Across the street, there's B2 far further.
If you go past the driveway, you don't even see them.
If what?
If you go past the driveway, you don't even see them. There's a free road there.
Yeah.
It pretty much blocks everything.
It's right behind the sign. Yeah. And they're fairly well screened.
Yeah.
Somewhat. I mean,
For Sheriff, there's no other business.
I actually have one small piece of business. I just got this today. I'm sorry I didn't make copies, but Lloyd Schiltz from the Mason County Conservation District sent me mail telling me that agricultural district that you all had reviewed sometime in the last 6 months, I think, had been approved. If you all want to see, it's Mason County Agricultural District 81-09. If you all can pass this around and take a look at the map if you want. I'm sorry, I didn't have the time to make copies, but I just wanted to let you know. I'll put that on the.
There's nothing we have to sign.
No, it's just basically informational that what you guys reviewed, and there's another agricultural district out there.
George, do you have a flyer or anything to notice people for next Wednesday's meeting at the Coxville? Is there something we can distribute to folks and solicit participation?
I can make one up if you want.
Yeah, just something we can email or Facebook out. Versus everybody show up, nobody be there.
I mean, you could. I've got Facebook notices. I've got a notice on the website
For that one.
I've got and you can send a link to the comprehensive plan update. So there are social media posts, website posts, if that's good enough.
No other business, motion to adjourn.
My motion statement.
A motion to adjourn, do I have a second?
Support.
All those in favor say aye.
It's pretty cool in here. I don't know.
You open that door, it's gonna hit you in the face.
David, bang that gavel so I can turn this recording.